Part-time adult here, just a heads up, this is not a how-to video, this is a how-I video. So use from it whatever you can. When it came time to decide to go to graduate school, it took me a long time to decide to do that. I was living in LA at the time and I was managing a youth center. When the time came to look at schools, I cast this global net. I was looking at schools all over the world, from Singapore to Spain, Africa, Italy, Canada, Australia, America, you name it. Now, living in LA, the most well-known schools are USC, UCLA, and they're great schools. But I just refuse to pay 120 grand for any degree from anywhere. Me no es piqui 120. Yo no es piqui. But don't let me knock your hustle if that's what you're trying to do, okay? So that's just what I felt worked for me. And when I first set out on my search for the perfect school, I had a list of criteria that I wanted in a school. I wanted regional accreditation for American schools, triple accreditation, specifically for the actual business program in that school. And that meant the AACSB accreditation, that's the American gold standard, the MBA accreditation, which is the international gold standard. And then there's EQUIS, which is it's like the European gold standard. So there's a bunch of accreditations all over the place. Those are like the big three. That's what you call the triple crown if you have all three of them. And I needed it to be $50,000 or less. I needed the school to have a great reputation, an athletic program, preferably with a major American football team. I wanted to be a graduate assistant and eventually get into athletic administration. So this alone slashed a huge chunk of programs around the world, right? I wanted a workable schedule. I wanted no entrance exam requirements, namely the GMAT, or at least have the option to skip the test if we did well in undergrad, right? Some schools were now taking the GRE. Before, a lot of schools just took the GMAT because it's harder than the GRE. Then they made the GRE harder, whatever. It's all about money. And I had trouble finding this school because this school does not exist. Just like the perfect person does not exist. Out of like 13,000 business schools, I think maybe 100 have triple accreditation around the world. So, it's like hoping for that perfect partner. And you have a million things that this person needs to be in order to be the right person for you. So you start making this list. They need to have perfect hair, perfect teeth, perfect body, a high-paying job. They need to smell amazing, and they need to love my family, and they need to be funny. They need to love to cook, and they need to want to spend life with me. Yeah. Good luck with that. Now, after a while, that list can turn into things like, instead of perfect hair, has hair. Sorry. Perfect teeth is now brushes teeth. Perfect body is now somebody. High-paying job is job. Has job, is employed. Smells amazing is now smells presentable. Loves my family turns into doesn't hate my family. Right? Funny turns into they don't have to be funny. I'm funny. Loves to cook is now like I got Pinterest and YouTube and the Food Network. I can learn. I also have Yelp. Worst case, I got Grubhub and Uber Eats. And you know what? I need to fast anyway. Wanting to spend life with me turns into wants to spend some time with me. Now, personally, I would rather die than be with this person. But that's just me. Don't let me get in the way of what you got going on. Now, I quickly learned that if I wanted to go to a triple accredited school, a triple crown school, I would automatically have to leave the United States because there were none in the US. So no major American football. Now we have 2 triple crown schools in America that just got their accreditation recently. The first one is, the first one on this list, but not the first one, Washington University in St. Louis with the Olin School of Business. They got their accreditation in 2021. And the Holt International Business School, which got theirs in 2018. Now, Holt has a few locations around the world. Their flagship campus is in Boston. So I'm seeing this and I'm bummed out, And then my mind starts to wander as I do more research. And I researched people I thought I wanted to be like. And I learned a few things during this process. One was that I had never heard of any of these schools that were triple accredited. I also learned that a lot of people that I thought I wanted to be like, they didn't go to these big fancy schools. I also understood that college debt was no joke. Thankfully, I had none for undergrad because I had Florida prepaid college program. So my college was pennies. Also, a graduate degree doesn't guarantee anything. And I'm thinking to myself, like, man, like, I can't leave the country. Like, I mean, like, I can, but do I really want to pick up my entire life now and move across the world? And the more I read about AACSB accreditation, it seems like it's really important if you want to be a business professor at an AACSB school. And I didn't want that. I also learned that, like many things, accreditation is a business. I remember asking a couple of schools about AACSB accreditation, and they said that they weren't pursuing it because it's just too expensive and it would drive up the price of the program. And that made me really consider other schools who didn't have that accreditation. Some business schools, they really impress people. Names like Harvard and Princeton, Stanford, Duke, Berkeley. Internationally, you have schools like INSEAD in France, which has a few locations around the world, and ESE Business School at the University of Nevada in Barcelona. And they got some locations around the world too. And there's plenty others. Now, I knew I wasn't gonna go that route for a bunch of reasons at this point, so there was no need to even try to fool myself. In all honesty, I did lack some confidence. I'm not gonna lie, I did. Then a couple of years passed by, nothing happened. I'm still waiting. There wasn't any real reason why so much time had gone by, and I hadn't even applied to a single school. That search for perfection really slowed me down. But now my perfection had made a new friend as the reality of grad school drew closer or was slipping away, depending on how you look at it. And that new friend was fear. You know, I'm thinking like, well, what if this happens? Well, what if this doesn't happen? And but this person, and but loans, and what if it's not the right time? And but these boxes haven't been checked. The one box I had to check myself. I had to remind myself that perfect doesn't exist, fool. But shut up. Shut up. Okay, but nothing. Like, you got this. I had to remind myself where I came from. I came from a medium-sized, historically black school, and I did all right in a big city. Now, let me tell you about LA. It ain't no joke. It is not a joke. I love LA. I love LA. But you can pursue your dreams and become homeless on the same street corner in LA. It ain't for the weak. It is not for the weak. I'm gonna make a video about LA one day, I promise. In LA, I consistently worked alongside people with bachelor's, master's, and doctorate degrees from all sorts of well-known schools like Columbia and USC, UCLA, Pepperdine, Berkeley, Loyola Marymount, University of Louisville, Baylor, a million others. I was around really smart people all the time, and I didn't feel out of place or intimidated at all. I'll also be the first to admit that I don't know everything, and I'll ask for help when necessary, which is just one of the many benefits of having great people around you. And I've actually beaten out people from Ivy League schools for certain jobs, and I needed to remember that. And it wasn't like I needed to toot my own horn, but I kind of sort of did, at least like to myself. It was to remind myself that I could do this, and that the school that I would go to would play a part, but not the only part. I had to give myself that pep talk, even though I always had people around me who always had my back, and they encouraged me. My biggest fear was getting math classes, you know, numbers, statistics, finance, accounting, kryptonite's gross, you know. Then one day I was talking to my executive director at work, a guy named Thomas Lee. Amazing dude. He's a big time CEO in California, a nonprofit guy. We still talk to this day. Amazing husband, father, all that stuff. Like, I want to be like him when I grow up, you know? And he told me that he told me something that was like my final push to like stop tripping and go for it, you know? And I wanted it, but I was scared. And when I told him why I was scared, and he said something, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said something like accounting, finance, and statistics is just numbers telling a story. And I was like, okay, I never thought about it like that. You shot a narco, D. No. So I ended up visiting several schools. University of Laverne, Mount St. Mary's College, which is now Mount St. Mary's University, Woodbury University. I just checked them out because they were nearby. I had never heard of them before. And California Lutheran University. So here is what happened. University of Laverne. Laverne is a city that's about 30 miles east of downtown LA, and thankfully the school has campuses all over the LA area. I visited the Burbank campus, and I don't know, it just didn't feel great. The lady who runs the program, really nice, but for some reason, I just wasn't feeling it. I asked her about the ACSB accreditation, and she said that the school wasn't pursuing it. And I was bummed out, maybe because it wasn't USC or UCLA, but I don't know, I just can't call it. Also, there were some people in there who made me feel like I don't think this was a great fit. So, but still, I was still keeping them in mind. But it wasn't until I called them to get clarification on the price. So the straw that broke the camel's back, I get on the phone, I call them. I wanted to know how much it cost. I just wasn't sure because everywhere I looked had like completely different numbers. So I'm like, let me just get it straight from the horse's mouth. And the lady I spoke to, really nice, but she couldn't give me a straight answer. And she kept saying like, oh, it depends, it depends, it depends. So I asked if she could give me like a range as to how much it would cost. A high figure, a low figure, and she couldn't do that. And that was enough for me to just cross Laverne off my list. Next, Mount St. Mary's University. This school was close to the house. They had a weekend program, which is the closest thing to convenient that I could think of, that I could find. The guy who ran the information session, he had a really cool accent, and I later found out that he was a business mastermind and would be one of my professors, and he was also the designer of the MBA program. They had a cohort model, so I knew when I would start and when I would finish. I knew that if I went to a program that allowed me to go at my own pace, I would probably be in school forever. So I actually ended up visiting this school twice. Hold that. Twice. 2 times. This is important. It did not have an athletic program. I was hoping to create an athletic program there. I later learned that idea had been shot down many times before, so not going to happen. But the fact that the school was in the heart of LA with what seemed to be like a doable schedule, big deal, big deal. Also, schools, take notice, they were straight up with the price. It was right there, clear as day, 38 grand, which is a steal because, you know, it's not going to be 38 grand today. And I actually looked at their website, and they've steered away from the direct to like, hey, this is how much it costs. I've seen everywhere from like 45 grand to 60 grand over here. So I don't know how much it costs now. I don't know. But dear schools, just tell us how much it costs. Just give us a price. If you can't have an exact price, give us a range. Woodbury University in Burbank. I had no real intention on going to the school, not for any reason in particular. I found out about the school like really late in my search. And I walked around a tiny campus. And since Burbank was close by, I was like, let me go check it out. It seemed like a pretty creative place, though I remember hating their website, which was not creative at all. And I guess it looks a little bit better, I guess. And yeah, didn't go there. Next was California Lutheran University, aka Cal Lu. I really, really, really liked this school. They had an athletic program, football team, it was affordable. And they had like a nice offering of different concentrations within the business school. And the only reason I didn't go here or didn't apply was because of the schedule and the location. I would have to drive 40 miles after work for night classes. And I'd probably make it home around 11 o'clock. I gotta be up at 6. They did have a campus that was about 20 miles away where I could take some classes, but unfortunately, I figured I would just like wear myself out. And in hindsight, I probably could have moved my schedule around, but I wondered if being a graduate assistant with the football team would even be possible considering my commute and my full-time work schedule, plus getting a grad assistant job when you weren't a former college athlete. Very hard, very hard. Now, had this school been closer, it would have been my top choice, definitely. Even if I can't do the grad assistant thing, I wanted to be there. A couple of other schools I looked at, Wake Forest University in North Carolina. I applied to Wake Forest because they had this scholarship apparently nobody was applying for, and they were like, we got to give this money to somebody. I knew I had little to no chance of getting it, but I applied anyway. I was like, screw it, it's a great school. Like I'll throw away some of my checklist items, and let's just see for fun. But I was thinking of moving to North Carolina. I'm not gonna lie. So Wake Forest, that's where it's at. Why not? So yeah, Wake Forest required the GMAT or the GRE. I took the GRE reluctantly. I did not do all that great, and that is putting it nicely. But I was like, you know what? The worst thing that they could say is no. And they did. Well, at least they called me, which is very nice, moving along. Next was Cal State University, San Bernardino. This school was cheap. It had AACSB accreditation, but it was also 70 miles away. And I did read some mixed reviews. Additionally, San Bernardino is home to many people who do not know how to properly live in Los Angeles. So a lot of people, they screw up in LA and they end up in San Bernardino. And, it's a well-known fact that the further east you go in California, the closer you get to hell. Plus, it's like 1990 in San Bernardino, and Satan vacations there. My dad actually tried to get me to come back home to Miami. He knows people all over, and I briefly thought about the University of Miami, which has a special place in my soul. But there were a few things that did concern me when it came to thinking about Miami. One, am I going to move back in with family? Why would I leave this good job with stability? I'm sorry, but did you say 90 grand for tuition? Which is probably cheap nowadays, which is crazy. What happens when I'm done? I felt stuck in Miami the last time I was there. The job market sucked. Still sucks. Do I really want to move again? And across country? What about competition? If I'm trying to be a grad assistant with the football team, half the NFL is from Miami. Most graduate assistants are former athletes, and I'm competing with guys who have Hall of Fame jackets? Well, they're probably not grad assistants, but they're coaches. I'm not sure that my JV highlight is worth much around here. Yes, I had one highlight. It was glorious. I blocked the field goal. Thank you. I think we still lost. I thought about what life could be like working with the football team at the University of Miami, but we had been underperforming for years under several coaches. And the coach at that time was Al Golden. He was just next in line. And frankly, respect the coach. I respect the hell out of him. I just didn't believe in him or his coaching staff, at least not at Miami. Great guy, godfather to all the kids all day. But everybody knew it wasn't working out, and everybody wanted him to win so bad. Now, what he did in other parts of his career, especially at Temple, was phenomenal because they were whack for a long time. He resurrected that program. But we all knew that he was going to be fired, and I wasn't sure what happened to graduate assistants in that situation. Miami, also notoriously cheap until recent when it comes time to paying coaches, which is why we had trouble landing big names, even though we're the most talent-rich city in America when it comes to football. Al Golden, great defensive coordinator. I think he'll get another shot at head coaching, whether if it's in the NFL or college, probably college, But anyway, back to choosing my school. My next approach was Googling cheapest MBA program in America. A few schools popped up, two stood out. I ended up looking at Eastern New Mexico University and New Mexico Highlands University. Both regionally accredited, extremely affordable, had football teams. They were so affordable that I actually thought of moving to New Mexico and going to school full time in New Mexico. No work, just school. I had enough money saved up that if I didn't want to work, I didn't have to. I could rent an apartment for 2 years and still have more than enough money to pay for books, food, other expenses without the need to take out any loans. And man, talk about a blessing. And I think one of the schools, if I remember correctly, had a weekend program that was so affordable that I could fly out on Fridays, go to school on Saturday and I think Sunday, and come back Sunday nights and work Monday through Friday. So work all week, fly out Friday, go to class over the weekend, come back Sunday, work the week, rinse, repeat. Ultimately, I thought that might wear me out. I also wasn't super psyched about living in New Mexico at the time if I was going to go that move to New Mexico route. Though there are some beautiful parts of New Mexico, not gonna trip. Now, lastly, I had to consider that there were some really cool things happening for me in LA, and I didn't want to let that go. So I applied to 2 schools. One, Wake Forest, Mount St. Mary's. I told you Wake was a no, the Mount was a go. I remember my interview going much longer than anticipated, and I knew early on that it was going well, and my interviewer made me feel real comfortable, and she made it clear from the jump that she was like, you'll know by the end of this interview if you're getting it or not. I thought that was cool. She said it was more about my personality, and I looked fine on paper. And that allowed me to really appreciate and understand the importance of being likable, which is what led me to create this video. I'll put it below too. And I love that about her. I didn't have time to play, neither did she. We ain't getting no younger. And she was actually really nice and ended up being one of my professors. She also happened to have a really successful commercial real estate firm. I thought that was pretty cool. I remember the day I got accepted. And the very first thing I thought was, well, if I got accepted here, maybe I should try applying to... Shut up. Shut up. Shut up, stupid. Accept the invitation. Get your degree already. Seriously. On my very first day of class at Mount St. Mary's, there was an event celebrating the 5-year anniversary of the MBA program. The school had a bachelor's in business that they've offered since forever, but the MBA program, very new. On this day, I remember seeing a woman who was in one of the tours that I took of the program a couple of years ago. She had just graduated from the program. Let me clarify. I took a tour of Mount St. Mary's 2 years ago. I met this woman on that tour. She just graduated. I waited 2 years before deciding to start the program. She jumped on it. Now, mind you, I don't know what her story is, but 2 years passed. She's graduating. I'm starting. That was a humbling and encouraging slap to the face. And now I only had 18 months to go. But I made it. Most of my classmates were dope. Professors, supportive, successful in their fields. I got to go to China. That was an amazing experience. I'll talk about it more in another video. I got a bunch of pictures. I'll link to it below whenever I get that done. Long story short, I got the MBA. I paid it off, made more money. I'm happy with my decision. What about you? You thinking of going to grad school? If you did go, or if you're going right now, how's your journey going? Tell us about it below. What are you studying? Where you going? How's it going? Though I appreciate my MBA, seeing where my career went and where I'm at now, I think I may have opted to go for a master's in education. I don't know. Maybe I'll get a doctorate or something, but I'm in no rush to do that at all. At all. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking now. Like, sub, share, all that good stuff if you like me. I appreciate that. Thank you for watching. I'm Aurelio. This is Part-Time Adult.